This is Talk Business and Politics with Roby Brock.
Welcome to this edition of Talk Business and Politics. I'm your host, Roby Brock. Thank you so much for joining us. Today, we'll talk politics with John Brummett. We'll talk about things happening at the state legislature and a little bit of national politics. We'll also dive into what might be happening on some economic development bills across the legislature. All of this on today's Talk Business and Politics Daily.
Talk Business and Politics Daily is sponsored in part by Impact Management Group and
Power. It's right there, waiting, ready to go when you are. Connect this, click that, unconnect and go every day. Delivered by your electric cooperative. Each unique, always united, and completely local. Born from a mission to provide dependable, sustainable, and affordable power to every corner of Arkansas. And delivering on that promise for a brighter Arkansas every day. It's the local hometown cooperative way. Better connected. Together. The Electric Cooperatives of Arkansas.
Well, quietly, there have been some economic development bills that have been making their way through the Arkansas State Legislature. Let's recap a few things that are in motion.
Keep your eyes on these three bills this week. Senate Bill 421, the Arkansas Water, Waste Disposal, and Pollution Abatement Facilities Financing Act of 2025, is a massive infrastructure bill that outlines how and when the state can issue general obligation bonds to finance and refinance water, waste disposal, pollution control, abatement, and prevention, drainage, irrigation, flood control, and wetlands resources projects. The Arkansas Natural Resources Commission helps put together the plan. Senate Bill 361 is also moving through chambers. The bill, the Industrial Development Authorities Expansion Act, changes language to allow for the creation of industrial development authorities with powers similar to port authorities, which are near waterways. Industrial development authorities would be able to form for economic development projects with similar infrastructure and tax incentives. Both Senate Bill 421 and Senate Bill 361 have cleared the Senate. They've also cleared a House committee, will be considered by the full House of Representatives this week before heading to the governor. Finally, House Bill 1923 amends the Arkansas Tourism Development Act and aspects of Natural State Initiative Opportunity Zones. Primarily, it lowers incentive thresholds and broadens the radius of opportunity zones in order to stir more potential business activity. Past 2 years ago, state leaders have discovered that businesses they're recruiting have not been as enticed as necessary to pull the trigger on investments around 4 state parks with these particular opportunity zones. Now, the House has passed House Bill 1923 on an 80-7 vote. It's sitting in the Senate Agriculture and Economic Development Committee. It must clear that panel and the full Senate before it could head to the governor for signature.
Of course, you can keep up with all of these stories on our website at talkbusiness.net. We're back with John Brummett right after this.
Talk Business and Politics Daily is sponsored in part by Capital Advisors Group and
in the Navy, I train recruits. At Walmart, I recruit veterans. So many veterans have built their careers here.
Served in the Army for 11 years. I was promoted 4 times. Been with Walmart 9 years. I've been promoted 5 times.
I started as an hourly associate, and now I run the store.
430,000 veterans hired in the last decade. That's more than serving in the U.S. Navy today. There's no better place for veterans to work.
Connection. It's the heart of what we do. It's why we work to better the communities where we live and work. It's why we're expanding to get people connected and create digital equity programs that support affordable internet and digital literacy. We're leaders for positive change. From the way we empower our people, clients, and communities to the way we care for our planet. We live our values every day. We're Cox Communications, and we're pleased to connect with you.
Joining me now, John Brummett, columnist with the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. John, good to have you with us.
Always good to be with you, Roby.
A little more than a week to go in this legislative session, at least by the dates that have been passed by the General Assembly for when they plan to depart. We still don't have a prison appropriation funding bill. There's been 3 tries last week. They all failed considerably short of the 27 vote count. Do you think that they get there?
You know, I do, because I just can't see such a major initiative of the Republican governor not being obliged by the Republican legislature But for the first time last week, I guess somewhere maybe between the second and third vote, and trying to analyze what Sponsor Dismang was saying and what some of the holdouts were saying, I began to contemplate that they might not be able to. I think they will, but it is conceivable to me now that between the Democratic votes in the Senate, scant though they are, and a few somewhat thoughtful, serious conservative Republicans who really seem to have some questions that they need answered about this prison in a place with no water supply and needing and intending to hire 800 or 900 people that don't exist in that county, and his own and needing, I guess, a pipeline from Fort Smith to have water and to put 3,000 prisoners there and cost probably $1 billion plus, that they may need some reassurance or that they have some serious policy concerns. And the 3/4 appropriation, you can't spare a lot of people. We only spare what, 8, and you got Democrats who are going to be against it. It's possible it could not happen, which would be a major substantive defeat and a political embarrassment at this point for the governor. That said, I think if they don't get it this time, they'll rework it and do it some other time. But it's interesting. There are legitimate conservative concerns about the practicality of this. And before I vote for, what is it? 300 at this point, 300 and something
150 million.
Yeah. Let's not do that. I could see that happening, but I still think in the end they'll probably pass it, because this is things like the Medicaid votes we always had, somewhat similar. You just don't get there, but you sort of know in the end that you will. Or like a jury that reports itself hopelessly deadlocked, and the judge looks at them and says, "Go back in there." It's and let's get serious about this. Let's pass this thing, or let's get a verdict out of this thing, or let's pass this thing. But could be some drama, and could be will be drama, but could be an interim embarrassing defeat for the governor. I'm thinking that remotely, but for the first time last week, I began to think that. You have any similar thoughts like that?
Yeah, I'm told that there is reliably a path to 27 in the Senate. I haven't seen it yet. I'm going to be from Missouri, the show me state. I'm going to have to see it to believe it. But I hear that when they get some of these senators with concerns in the office and walk through the process and their plan, that it does seem to change minds a little bit. I'm not so sure that Democrats stay in lockstep opposed to it. And, they still got to get 75 down in the House, too. And
right.
Tell me that they feel pretty good about 75 in the House. So it's just the Senate's the big obstacle. And like you said, we may see some more setbacks this week. We may see some movement this week. It could also all get taken care of in the fiscal session a year from now if it doesn't get taken care of now. So I think there's a lot of cards to be played on all this, but it is an interesting political dynamic to watch all the moves that are going on.
Yes, it is. I'm going to predict passes 28-7 somehow in the Senate. Which
a little more optimistic than me. I'm gonna give it 27. So just the minimum that it needs.
You're mentioning that the Democrats aren't lockstep. Okay, I'm gonna say 27.5. Go for the over/under on that. Okay.
All right. Other things that's kind of playing out with a week to go in the session. I'm quite curious to see what happens with this House Bill 1150, which would block different pharmacies that are also PBMs from owning pharmacies in the state. This seems to be heating up quite a bit. It sailed through the House after a lot of debate, but I think that you're going to see a full court press. I saw in the Democrat Gazette over the weekend, there were some big ads in there from CVS pharmacies saying they were going to close all their pharmacies if this passes and lay off 500 people, and that'd be access to medicine people don't have. I just think the stakes on that one's about to ramp up a lot. What else are you watching?
Well, I'm just watching to see if they can. Not much, really. To be honest with you, I'm looking. The prison thing interests me, and that has really become a hot political and business story. The pharmacy thing. I've this culture war between small pharmacies and pharmacy chains, and how they're owned and how they operate and how they can control or set prices. You got big people, big powerful forces that are rising up now, and I really think that's a truly fascinating issue. And I don't know when the money when money and a big public education initiative unveils late, it can make a big difference. So that's those are the two. I mean they got. Have we seen a revenue stabilization act yet?
Not yet. That will be out this week, and I'm told that's pretty smooth sailing event.
Yeah, I would think so. I just thought we might have seen a draft or something at this point. Yeah, that's what those are the things I'm sort of spend a little more time right now trying to figure out 401ks, personal IRAs, and the global economy. I spent a little time on that this last week. What about you?
That's a segue into my next topic, and let's talk about the Trump tariffs and what they're doing to the stock market and the overall economy. I mean, there just doesn't seem to be much remorse from Trump that he's causing some of the economic chaos that he is. But I think people are feeling it in their pocketbooks, and they're going to feel it even more.
Yeah, and I don't think that the decisive, probably late deciding swing voters of the three decisive Midwestern states voted for Trump in the end to start a global trade war.
He said he was going to do that.
Well, I don't think it was I don't think it's what people were deciding on, and there was a lot of thought that he does tend to talk big and then not do what he says. He has followed through on this in a way that violates the first rule of a minority president, which is do no harm. I wrote a column when Joe Biden became president saying, don't do anything. Do as little as you can. You're only there because of a reversion to Trump. Then Trump gets back in, I think, not to attack 401ks or flex muscle on trade, but because the Democrats had overplayed their hand and we're in this cycle and we're back in it. And we should have expected it of Trump, even though I wrote a column before the session saying, I don't think it's going to be as bad as you fear because he just wants to play golf. It turns out he wants to play golf, but he also wants to be like Tommy Robinson and chain prisoners to the fence. He wants to chain our retirement dollars to some fence somewhere and risk them in a global flex of economic muscle. And when you are in a politically dysfunctional place, which America currently is, the first thing you need to fix is your politics so that you can have some credibility and build some coalescence of backing before you isolate a country that's great economically from its friends in the world and from trade. I say that not as an economist. I'm not an economist. I have no idea whether this will work. All these countries may come to heel and come to Trump and say, "I will negotiate the deal. You set the terms. We got to get back together on this." That may work out, and we may be entering a golden age, thanks to Trump. Politically, though, a mandate is not what it used to be. Ronald Reagan had a mandate and did a heck of a lot less than this guy who got 49% of the vote and won by a few votes in a few swing states is doing. And it's his narcissism, it's his quest for power, but that's all political and personal analysis. I have no idea whether this and I don't know who does know for sure how this crapshoot is going to play in the end.
That probably is the best summary of all of it right there. We don't know how this crapshoot's going to play. So All right, he's John Brummett. He's columnist with the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. Always appreciate his thoughts and outtakes. Appreciate you.
Okay, see you next time. Bye-bye.
That's all for this edition of Talk Business and Politics. I'm Roby Brock. Thanks for tuning in.